Hi, my name is Samantha Shannon, and I'm a professional portrait photographer, and today we're going to talk about printing. So if you know that you are going to be more than likely printing your images at the end, not just handing over digitals, there's a couple of things to think about along the way. You don't have to do this, but it does make your life a little bit easier, is to try and correct your white balance in camera. I use the Expo disc to try and get my white balance as close to accurate as I can, and then I can go in later and use the droppers in either Photoshop or Lightroom to dial in the accuracy if it feels a little off to me or if I want to do something artistic. But it helps if you are at least in the realm of being correct on that. The other thing is, if you're going to be printing, it's best to shoot raw. You want to make sure that you have, a full range of colors. And if you make a mistake or you underexpose or overexpose, you have a better chance of being able to fix and correct those in post. Often people ask me why I leave so much space around my subject when it seems unnecessary, but I'm always thinking ahead. I'm always thinking about how I'm planning on printing this, and I need to know that I have all the options available to me. So I will even edit the image fully and then crop it later. So while, if you're in Lightroom and you're going through and you're picking out your images, don't crop it to where you think you want it and then retouch it. I made some mistakes like this where I had all the space in the world and then I cropped and then retouched it. And then we find out we need a canvas. And I go, oh my gosh, I have to re-edit the whole image because I can't just go add those pieces back in that I took out. I had the image in full and I went and cropped it too soon. So, I leave the room, back up, make sure you have enough room, because if they say they want a canvas and they want the image to wrap around the canvas, you want to make sure you have enough space there. Calibrate your monitor. I have talked about this and I will say it again. It's important to make sure that you are calibrated to your lab or to your printer at home. You want to make sure your colors are right. You don't want to go through all that work of retouching your photo only to have it print either orange or green or just something different than what you expected. So it's important that your colors are correct to make sure that your clients are going to be satisfied with what you present to them. Going back to color correction, like I said, I do use the Expo disc. Sometimes that doesn't work in cloudy situations. The Expo disc doesn't do a really great job, and that defaults me to either shooting in Kelvin. So I'm adjusting the numbers myself. Auto, I'm not a huge fan of auto, although sometimes auto can be good. But in post, you can go ahead and find neutral colors or blacks or whites in Photoshop. It will do it in Photoshop, black and white, to color correct your images. So once a client says to me, these are the image that I would like to purchase, and they're going to go in some form of wall art or print, I will pull those images out from, all the images into a separate folder, and I will fine tooth comb, go through each one and clean it up. So this is, fixing, maybe there's a patch of grass that looks weird and you think, well, why are you going to go through all that? It just sets your images apart from the rest. If they look really amazing, that's what you want to present. That's what I want to present. I want my images to really look amazing and perfect. So I will go through, but I will not do this and edit every photo like this. It's too time consuming. I will do this for the ones that they purchase and that are going to be printed. So I will go through again and clean up the landscape, do a really good job on the flyaways on the hair. Now, flyaways are a funny thing. Some people really like them because they think they look natural to the environment and wispy, and some people just hate them. So if you want to save yourself time, ask the client ahead of time, would you like me to remove the flyaways? If they say no, you can, be grateful and happy that you don't have to deal with it. If they say yes, obviously go through and do that. But cleaning up the image, making sure, check for skin, any weird things happening with skin or anything in the image that just doesn't seem perfect to you. I always do that right before it goes to print. The other thing that I do is I sharpen the image. The images, especially when you're importing them in, Lightroom actually goes in and adds a little sharpening filter to it. So it does a little bit of sharpening. But if you're going to be printing, I personally believe that the image should be sharpened a little further. So I actually will take the images into Photoshop, and I'm going to show you an example. I have this image here from the shoot we did earlier, and we're going to pretend here that this is for a canvas. Now, canvas has a lot of texture, and sometimes the details of the image can get a little lost or look a little muddy or blurry, especially when you go big. So for me, I have a specific way that I like to sharpen for a canvas versus how I would sharpen for a general print. And also the size of the image sometimes changes how I would sharpen. But personally, I like to use, if you go into the filter and the sharpen, and then I go into unsharp mask. Now, typically, I've already done it here, but I will make a background copy by taking the background layer and dragging it to the new layer here. It will create a new background copy. That way I can turn it on and off to see how strong the effect is, or maybe I don't want the effect on the full image. That way I can add a layer mask and brush some of it off. So you've got 3 different sections here: amount, radius, and threshold. I will usually zoom in pretty close to the face. And this is a smaller file, so I'm already at 200%, but usually when you're looking at this, your image is going to be even a little larger, something like this. So usually for print, especially on a canvas, I will be between 200 and 300%. So I'll go to maybe 250 here. Now, if you look at her skin, it looks really crunchy, and that doesn't look good, but we're not done. The radius, I usually have this for a canvas, is going to be like 2%, which is a lot. And now it looks really terrible. But what we're going to do is add this threshold here. And this is usually between 9 and 15. Oops, and I went too far. So I'll put this at around 13. So this sort of went back and sort of smoothed out the face and all the fine little details. But the outlines are a lot stronger now. So if I take this preview on and off, you'll see that now it almost looks blurry. And this does look over sharpened, but once it's printed, it will look amazing. And again, it would be going on a canvas, which has a lot of texture, and it needs to be a little overdone to really look great on a canvas. Now, if this was just going on a general print, I would not be quite so high. I might be at a 1 for the radius because we don't need those details to be quite as popping. And I might go to maybe 200 or 185 on the amount, and you can turn that on and off, and you can still see it pop some of the details in their eyes or lips. Pretty much the outline, everything is sharpened. This, to me, personally, is my way that I like to sharpen. You can go in and through Lightroom and sharpen there. You can just go into the filter and sharpen generically, but having control over these pieces for me makes the best looking images. And those canvases, when they come back, they just look amazing when you can really see all the detail through all that texture. So just wanted to kind of give you a little peek inside how I do it. You can try it out. Maybe you'll find that you like it too, or maybe you'll find a different method. ICC versus trusted printers. ICC is basically color profiles that the labs give you that you can import into Photoshop to kind of match their system. I've tried this a few times, and it was a colossal disaster for me. I didn't like doing it. I didn't think it looked right. I couldn't quite figure it out. And I used multiple labs, and it just seemed like such a headache to me that for me personally, I just let the lab color correct. And even in the beginning, I was such a control freak. I didn't even want the lab to color correct. So there's a little, when you go into the ordering system for the labs, there's a little checkbox that says, allow the lab to color correct, make color correction for you. Now, they're not color correcting your image from the beginning. So don't send them, uncolor corrected images and think they're going to completely fix it. I mean, they'll tweak it for you if it looks a little off. But I didn't even want them to do that initially, but I've kind of gotten over that, and I do let them color correct. It just makes it easier, and I always get back beautiful images that I'm happy with. So that's sort of how I handle that. All right, so now you've ordered your print. It's arrived, and the one thing you don't want to do is just take the box that's from your lab and hand it off to your client. A couple of reasons why is, for one, I like to actually wrap things very nicely and present it in a professional way. But two, you need to open it up to inspect it yourself. You need to make sure that you got the right print. I've heard stories of photographers getting someone else's entire order, so it could not even be them. Or if the lab made a mistake, I've had the lab send me a canvas where the ink actually missed a spot and it was on someone's face, and they had to fix and replace the canvas. Now, the client never even knew that happened because I checked it very quickly and they overnighted everything and I got it really quick. But if you just hand off the UPS box to the client, I just think it looks unprofessional, and also you could be missing the opportunity to check your order. And if you do need to replace something, well, let me back up. So when I go to deliver the package, or if I have a studio at the time, they come to me. I actually have a piece of paper that they sign. Well, actually, I do it digitally now through 17 Hats, but basically it says that they have reviewed the order, they accept it in its current condition, and that they find no flaw with it. So they're basically saying, I'm good with this. It looks great. I make them inspect it. Even if they say I don't want to, I say, well, I'm not leaving until you do. And because once I'm gone, if they find a problem with it, I know that it was inspected and that I'm not on the hook for it. So if it rips, breaks, tears, their kid takes a Sharpie to it and then they try and blame me, nope, I saw it. We looked at it together. Now, if this is something that there's an error that gets caught, maybe I missed it and I deliver it and we find that the color is way off, or there's a tear at the back or a scratch, then I would take that back to the lab first and ask the lab to replace it. If for some reason the lab would not replace it, I would still replace it at my cost. Like, you cannot present something like that to a client and expect them to be okay with it. So I would absolutely pay for it on my own, or have the lab replace it, which 90% of the time they will, as long as you can send them, a photo of whatever the issue is. But just make sure that you are checking the orders before they go out and present them in a way that's not just in a cardboard box. And if you don't have money for nice packaging, I used to spend a lot of money on this expensive packaging, and it just got really expensive. And what I ended up doing was I use brown packing paper and really nice ribbon, and then these really cool flower things that I buy, they're fake, that I tuck in, and it looks so nice, and it costs me hardly any money at all. And every time I deliver one, everyone says how beautiful it is, and it's basically paper and fake flowers and ribbon. So basically, in summary, we're just going to go over, we are keeping in mind always that we are photographing these sessions with the idea that we're going to be printing in the end. We want to make sure we're calibrating our monitors, and that we are retouching the images that they select, getting them ready for printing, and then making sure that you're checking everything before it goes to the client, and keeping the client happy if you have to replace it. It doesn't happen often. It's not going to happen often in your career, but part of having a business is taking a loss sometimes. So if it happens, just smile, good customer service, no problem. I'll take care of this for you. And, I think that's the best way to handle it. So hopefully this helps you out and gets you ready to start printing your portraits.